right, everyone. Welcome back to Unraveling the Brain. Dr. Lauren Liming here. I am here with the Davis family, and they brought their really entertaining, really bright, great to work with son to us last Monday. We've been working through so like a diagnosis of pandas, and in the clinic, we're working on rehabilitating some of the systems that were involved in just making things more difficult for him. So like with learning and attention, focus, and impulse control, and just being able to regulate his emotions. And when we did his exam, we looked for primitive reflexes. So we always look at kids from like the base developmental necessities, and then we work our way up through there. And obviously, he's a very cognitive kid, very bright kid, very capable kid. But he had deficits on his exam that presented to, similar to a really young kid. He still had primitive reflexes. A lot of people think of primitive reflexes as, hey, they develop, they're gone, but sometimes they can come back. And I think that's the case with Marcus, or excuse me, with Micah, is that these reflexes came back at some point, and for him, he had an infection that was a big trigger for things. And so this is commonly known as PANS or PANDAS. And this is essentially a neurological autoimmunity that can be triggered by an infection. It can be triggered by a concussion, chronic mold toxicity, chronic food issues. And we really dug in with some labs, dug into a full neurological assessment, and we've been working on things, and you guys have received some guidance on the labs, but I kind of spilled the beans on the conversation here, but tell me, a little bit more about Micah's story. What brought you guys here? What was the catalyst that brought you to Infinity? What were the goals? What have you seen? And kind of take it away, guys.
So, it was back in January of 2020. Had just moved in December of 2019 to a new town, and currently, we had a diagnosis with Micah of ADHD, and they said that they seen some OCD tendencies, but not enough to give him that diagnosis, and anxiety. And so we were trying different medications. They had him on 30 milligrams of Vyvanse. He was drastically losing weight, would not eat. His eyes were sunken in really bad. And just overnight, though, I asked him to do his homework one evening, and he looked at me and he's like, "You get away from me. You're against me. Who are you?" And just his eyes were glazed over, just looked like a different kid. I told my husband, almost demonic looking. It was just crazy. And so it just spiraled from there. Um, we dealt with this for a couple of nights to where he would literally fight us, and his strength was like no other. It took both of us holding him down, keeping him from wanting to put his hand in a light socket, and just never seen this side of him lives. Um, and yeah, he was born completely normal, no issues. He was born at 38 weeks, but completely fine. Weight was fine. Loved outdoors, loved people, loved going fishing. I mean, just loved the Lord, loved praying, loved worshiping. I mean, that was just something he was so excited about, going to church, and completely shut off. Wanted to stay inside, um, hated outside, just started like declining as far as having friends, didn't know how to communicate with people. And
And look everybody in
so,
the eye,
yeah, he couldn't look, and he told us it would hurt to look you in the eyes. Um,
but we found out that he had strep 3 or 4 times in 1 season.
Wow. Yeah.
So, yeah, so we went to Vanderbilt, and seen some doctors there, and they did a full psych eval, and we seen general doctors. We ran,
EEG.
yeah, EEGs to make sure he wasn't having seizures, and Hillary somehow found out that that's what I never heard of PANDAS. Found out, hey, maybe that's what it could be. Had them run a strep test. It initially tested negative and cultured it and came back positive.
And that's
And
what I
that's
had
what
been
really,
told.
that's what really triggered the whole, like, let's dive deeper. And so we seen infectious disease doctor at Centennial. Um, Still, it seems like that they're, and I don't have as much of understanding as you guys, but Seems like there's some markers that they could look for, but we never could get a specific answer on like, hey, he has pandas, or hey, this is what's really going on like in his brain or his body. And so, yeah, that's what led us here, is just trying to figure out, other than just giving him medicine every single day, like, let's figure out what's going on in his body and his brain. So,
Something else that I'll mention, he never had extreme OCD with intrusive thoughts. He never had Tourette's, both vocal and motor. Those were 2 things that he had after this. They diagnosed him with both of those. Um, we actually were really blindsided about the Tourette's
yeah,
because we were having him tested for autism. We actually took him twice, because we wanted answers. We just didn't understand how he went from this completely normal kid to just completely opposite.
a different
Yeah, it
child.
just like it stole him. It stole his personality. And so his handwriting, that was another thing. It's like super sloppy and just all over the place. But the last 3 years, this was when he was 7. The last 3 years, his schooling has just declined more and more. Bullying has gotten really bad. We had to pull him back this past March, or no, this March. Yeah,
Yeah.
just recently to do homebound. Because he just said, "I physically can't get my hands to write and do the work," and he was so smart, and he still is super smart.
Very,
Really
very.
is.
This episode is sponsored by Infinity Method for Parents.
Hey guys, I am super excited to offer this parents coaching course. I'm going to teach you how to assess your child, actually neurologically. So that way you're not asking the question, well, why is my kid not speaking, or why is my kid not walking? You'll know why they're not speaking or why they're not walking, because you'll know how to assess their underlying developmental neurology. You'll know, well, they're not walking because they don't have the foundational motor skills developed, because they still have primitive reflexes. They still have balance issues. They still have eye tracking issues. And if those systems aren't developed, they can't do that. So I'm gonna teach you how to assess all those things in your own child. And then I'm gonna teach you how to rehab it. I'm gonna teach you what you need to look for in labs, what things you should be pushing towards with other providers that I've seen to be beneficial for literally thousands of kids. So this course is for parents that really want to make a change. That means putting time aside in your calendar. That means willing to change diet. That means willing to add supplementation in. That means willing to do exercises on a daily basis. And that means also willing to invest financially in your child's long-term development. If I tell you, hey, I want you to make a dietary change, it's not, oh, well, I can't do that for this reason. It's, okay, well, let's figure out how to do it. Those are the parents that help their kids develop really, really well, is the ones that are willing to make changes and figure it out. The ones that are going to make excuses, they won't get results here. Do not join this course if you're going to make excuses, because I don't want you to waste your time. I don't want you to waste your money. And with the methodologies we use, we need that consistency. If you're interested, jump in, sign up now, and I'm going to give you access to all of my other courses. And then we get a couple lives every single month where we're going to walk through all these things. I'm going to teach you how to do all these things and really help your kid to mature and develop and grow. And it's going to be a super fun year.
Well, and to like put this into perspective, the area of the brain that's really involved in PANS or PANDAS is really most commonly, it's called the basal ganglia. The basal ganglia has 3 major functions. One is movement, and so that's where you can see some of those vocalizations. You might see hyperactivity, difficulty with fixation of the eyes. It's difficult for them to keep their eyes in one spot, so eyes are going to wander around. That disrupts learning dramatically. Handwriting can be gross motor, it can be fine motor, but it's also, the basal ganglia is also part of our attentional networks, and it really allow us to sustain focus and attention even when things are boring to us. And it also comprises some of our limbic system, so socialization and goal-directed behavior and like emotional control. And a lot of kids with a condition like this, their emotions will go up and down. It's you'll see, they might be in a great mood, and then something can trigger. It can be trivial or small, and then all of a sudden, hey, I see this big emotion. It's kind of like, hey, where did that come from?
Okay.
And the way I explain it is like a stressed basal ganglia can take the brain wherever it wants to go. And so the basal ganglia and the frontal lobes are really intimately connected with each other. And so you might have frontal lobe system or symptoms like, hey, this kid's like not paying attention, or like maybe some executive function is limited, or some learning issues are challenged. But the frontal lobe is being affected by this stressed area of the nervous system. And the reason it's that basal ganglia is we have different proteins that comprise the brain. The basal ganglia has a stop and a go button. Those stop and go buttons have proteins that look like the strep A bacteria protein sequence. And I always explain, hey, proteins have barcodes. Our antibodies have barcode scanners. If they're scanning for strep and they make their way into the brain, they can mistake these go and stop buttons for strep. And so strep can be an initial trigger because now all of a sudden we have these antibodies with these barcode scanners looking. But now if the gut's stressed, if the blood-brain barrier is disrupted, now these antibodies just have like this free reign and they go wherever they want to. To put that into perspective further, like the blood-brain barrier should keep the peripheral immune system out of the brain. The brain has its own immune system. But when that barrier has been disrupted, so like chronic gut issues, like food sensitivities, which would touch on here in a little bit, toxic exposure, molds, like all of these different things can stress the gut lining, and now the blood-brain barrier is stressed, and now it's permeable to these antibodies. And so a lot of people can get strep and not have changes. And the way I kind of explain that is, a developing brain has this unlimited potential, but it's also susceptible to stressors along the way. And this is a form of it. And this is common. Like this is, the awareness of this is increasing dramatically. Like pediatricians, diagnosing this, and it's largely based upon history, like that rapid change in behavior, that observation. And then, but there are special labs that we can run. The medical community typically calls it a Cunningham panel, where they're looking for dopamine receptor antibodies, antitubulin, which were markers that we found on the neurozoomer, but then also looking at infections that could be complicating this. And so like that strep A infection that he has, the CMV infection, because the goal is to try to remove as many layers of stress as possible. And when the system is stressed, it's more prone to stress. It's more susceptible to other levels of stress. And so by looking at nutritional labs or food sensitivities and looking at what kind of infections he has and looking at what kind of nutrients can support him, those are all goals in his healing, in his development, or those are all tangible things that we can then control, manipulate, adapt to help support him while he heals. On that note, like, what did you learn from the labs, things that you can take from those labs and then apply to, everyday life? And some of them might not be, hey, tomorrow we're doing these big, huge changes, but what's your goal?
I think getting confirmation, or I guess just knowing the gluten sensitivities, the dairy sensitivities, some of the mold, so like low processed foods or packaged foods, some of the chemicals like in the household that we clean with, I think that came up. And there was a couple viruses that you have that I didn't realize. So like the Epstein-Barr and cytomegalovirus. There's a couple interesting things that I had no idea about. So,
And we've already implemented the gluten. We're going to eventually implement dairy too, because he only eats like 12 to 15 things. And I was like, how do I do this? But
I think even since we've been here, I think he's been way more open to like trying different foods. And that's something that we haven't seen at all.
It's a big deal.
So like we went and got ice cream at the mall, and he's like, "Hey, I need a dairy or a gluten-free menu," and like that's just not my fan. He's like vanilla only.
But not only that, he was like, I think I want to try strawberry and coffee.
Yeah.
And I'm like, excuse me, what did you just say?
Yeah,
Coffee.
you're right.
He didn't like either one of them. He said strawberry was okay, but the fact that he even wanted to try it, we were just like, this is not even the sunshine we brought here. Or completely different.
We'll see a lot of kids, and there's probably millions of kids out there with food restrictions. And the way I explain that is, okay, one, the foods that they like are often addictive foods. Like, hey, we get essentially like an opioid effect from consuming gluten and dairy. And there's nothing inherently bad about those foods, but when I talk about barcodes, the barcodes of gluten and dairy have really similar barcodes to tissues in the body, like especially in the brain. And so like when we see those as food sensitivities, that's why we're like, okay, let's take these off. Let's peel back a layer of stress. Just give that brain a little bit of room to breathe and function. But when kids have these food restrictions, one, we're often addicted to these foods that we consume a lot of, myself included, but also the new textures, new smells. Like we have heightened sensory systems that are a lot more or really easily triggered by new foods. Like maybe it's vegetables or something with a different spice or a different texture and or a different look. And so, like when we consume that, our sensory systems are really already overwhelmed. They're not super stable, and so in those instances, those kids are just really overwhelmed personally, and they just kind of shut down. And then they experience that, and then from there they're like, okay, I'm not doing that again. Like I don't want to go down that road.
Right.
But I feel like a lot of kids after they've been here are more receptive to new foods. And I think that that's very anecdotal and just really observational, like feedback from parents after they've been here, even like during their intensive. One thing I've noticed with him just is like neuromotor systems improving, like balance. His primitive reflexes are gone, which is great. Like his eye stability has improved a lot, and those are all systems that we're working through. And neurological autoimmunity essentially mimics a concussion. It's a cell level injury. It's ongoing. It's again, it's a stressor on the brain. And so kids with these conditions will present as, hey, like they bonked their head, where hey, we might not have even had a concussion as a trigger, which can be a trigger for PANS or pandas, but the presentation is similar between like a mild to moderate concussion and the condition that we're working with Micah, because the brain's just stressed. And so when you start to help support that, you're decreasing inflammation. Then all of a sudden, like, hey, maybe our focus is improving, or maybe our impulse control improves. And within this short period of time, and I said it before, sometimes we can see behaviors go up and down. There's normal leaps and regressions that children go through between birth and 10 years old. I think it's 14. And when you're doing developmental work, you're working on the brain, you're working on all these skills. A lot of times we see those leaps and regressions kind of condensed into a shorter time frame. But with him, like his the systems that we're working on have shown significant improvement. That translates into, hey, maybe it's easier for me to fixate my eyes, and then all of a sudden learning becomes less of a stress. It's less difficult. It takes less effort for him, and so even those neuromotor systems improving can then translate into significant functional improvements at home. Like, hey, I can sit down and work on things for a half hour, or maybe I was at 15 minutes. Like, that adds up over time. And so, really our measures and our goals are, hey, let's get these reflexes, get the balance, get the postural control, get this eye tracking, this eye stability. And then from there, kids just take that and build on it functionally. One of the things that you had observed was like, hey, maybe this is why he relates best to younger kids, is that he maybe had skipped some of these steps throughout this stressful period, but it's never too late. His brain is going to develop into his 20s, and preteen, if you influence that development, that compounds significantly. What kind of observations have you made just in this week and a half
Yeah.
being here so far?
Yeah, that was absolutely the first thing that we noticed was his focus. I mean, I told Hillary, I was like, look at the difference between a picture I took before we came and a picture now. I mean, I didn't even expect it. I didn't know that's something that would happen. But I'm like, hey, Mike, take a picture real quick. And he like looks me directly in the eyes, or looks at the camera directly in the eyes. And so that was huge, because I mean, that may not seem like a big deal, but like for us, it's like, it's really hard to get him to look at a camera or to
Or
look at
just
somebody.
conversation.
Yeah,
I
I
was in
mean,
the
just to look at
elevator.
somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, dude, you just looked at mom the whole time talking, and we were communicating, and you were looking at me, and you did not ever look away. Like, that was such a big
Of course,
deal.
he's
And
like, Mom, stop.
yeah, and
But
he was
yeah,
excited too. You
yeah.
could tell, and he was
But
like, "How does that make you feel, buddy?" And he was like, "It makes me early."
yeah.
You
And
know,
then
so
I think like his impulse control, I know there's always gonna be highs and lows, but it seems like his lows have been not as bad, so like we're able to, like if he does something wrong, or if he don't get his way or whatever, he hasn't had the same outburst. It's been just a lot less intense.
well, and usually,
So
like, we cannot get to resolve or work through
you're
it,
right,
but we've been
right.
able to work through it and come
See,
to
it's
a
like more, he's like,
resolution.
yeah, he's been more reasonable, like more like, okay, I get it, or, you know,
We'll go with the
understand. Yeah.
flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. So even riding in a car, going shopping, you know, which he doesn't like, but
What man or boy
he's
does.
been really good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know, so absolutely.
When I want to give credit to Micah for the work that he's put in, like his effort, like he's just he's really engaged in what we do. Like he might say, like, "Oh, not that," but then he does it and he tries his best and he puts forth the effort. And then I think he's really connected well with Mr. Taylor, like one of our lead therapists, who is just a brilliant man. He's a great leader. He has great sessions, and so I got to do Micah's exam, which is honestly easy. Hey, I'm in there for an hour. Let's check some things out that we check all day, every day anyway. Kind of explain things to mom and dad, and then okay, now Mr. Taylor, he's the one in charge of putting that exam into practice, and then leading Micah, setting expectations, adapting care as he's gone, and so Mr. Taylor is fantastic. So a lot of people come here and they might not work with a doctor the whole time, but our whole team is amazing, and so I just kind of wanted to highlight that fact that I think he made his best progress with Mr. Taylor, and I've got to work with him this week, and so it's not like, hey, it's Mr. Taylor versus someone else. It's like Mr. Taylor versus me, and I think he's really doing fantastic. But yep,
Taylor's been
He's been great, and
huge and influential for
I
him.
mean, honestly, I think everybody here has been really, really good. I mean, just really patient and works with him really well. But he seems to draw to Taylor for sure. Yeah, he's done great with him.
good.
He made a comment. He said, the other night to me, he said, "Mom," I said, "Yeah, buddy." You could tell he was in a deep thought, and he was like, "Mr. Taylor." I said, "Yeah." He said, "He's an awesome dude, isn't he?" I said, "He is." He said, "I really like him. I confide in him, and I can trust him." And I was like, I went up to him. Yeah, I look up to him. And then he was like, something else. He was like, "He might forget me when I leave." And I was like, no. And I had talked to Taylor, and he was like, "And you for really good, good day. Thank you for telling me and all." But yeah, all the staff here is so friendly and so nice. It feels so inviting when the second you step in y'all's office, and just peaceful and just calm. And that's so important, especially for people like us and those who come from all over, to know that you feel safe and with your staff.
Yeah, I asked Mr. Taylor, I'm like, hey, can you take Micah the last 25 minutes so we can sit down, mom and dad, to do a podcast? He's like, oh yeah, let's do it. Like he was pumped. Like he even came in early to take over and lead. And so I think that's common here. Like we spend hours with a kid or over weeks, and you just like learn a lot about them, a lot about their family, what they like, what helps them. And he comes from a vision therapy background. And he's just for basically a decade, he's been working with kids and just finding out what makes them tick, and how can he lead and adapt. And yeah, so he's an excellent resource. There are therapists here that like blow me away. Our whole team blows me away every
Christine.
single day.
He was wonderful last week too.
Mhm.
Yeah. So just knowledgeable. And what I told my family that we've talked to is like, you guys are so confident in what you know, and that's important too. Like we can see, like you carry that, to where you go to other places and you're not so sure, but it reassures us to know that you guys have studied and done your work, and you give your all with these families. So
I've definitely learned a lot. I'm always picking his brain and stuff. I didn't realize, and you've already touched on it, but I didn't realize how much like your vision or your eye tracking can affect your behavior and stuff. And so Taylor's been able to like see different things and kind of bring that to our attention. It's awesome, you know. So for sure.
Well, it's been an honor to work with Micah and to meet you guys. And like you said, loves the Lord. I pray that he continues to develop and grow and succeed and just really live up to his potential, because it's really significant. And so God bless him. God bless you guys. And thanks so much for your time.
Yeah.
All right.